Hi everyone, how's it going? I hope you're well. We want to welcome you to the Three Neighbours. If you're joining us for the first time, I hope you hang in there. This is where we talk about everything fun, and challenging and political and cultural and sporty, whatever it is. But essentially, the idea is to make sure that we'll bring you back to really understand what it means to be being a good neighbor, and how we can sort of talk about things in a way that not only challenges our thoughts, but also help us refine how we see things and see the world in general. And so I'm Vic, and this is Dave, and that's Kevin, and this are the Three Neighbors, and we want to welcome you to this channel. Now, today we have a lot of things to talk about, but last week we had started off talking about just general introductions around how we met, and one of the things that I forgot to mention was also, I think I focused more on how I met Kevin last week, but I didn't talk so much about how I met Dave. And I think, of course, after we exchanged Christmas gifts and all, one of the things that happened was Dave had invited me to his place. But before that, I had an experience that was very fascinating. For the first time in my life, I had to see a gun up close coming to America. And this was just in a dinner session where I had, I think one of my colleagues invited me for Thanksgiving. And we're just having dinner. And for some reason, I saw something that looked kind of blackish in someone's clothes. I'm like, is that a gun? and I was frightened because I've not seen a gun that up close in my life. And the gentleman was like, yes. And I was like, what do you need a gun for? Because he was just a young boy. And he said, well, it's for my protection. I'm like, how old are you? He's like 21 years and you need a gun? That blew my mind away, right? And so I came back and I started to talk to Dave about this incident. And Dave was like, you know what? It was Dave started to introduce me to the culture. And that was very helpful because it enabled me to kind of learn a bit more about the gun culture in America, which I was very ignorant about. Had no idea how that meant a lot for most people who saw it as a sport. Now, to cut the long story short, Dave took me out on the ranges where we kind of, and showed me how to shoot and all that, which I think was very cool. And after that, guess what? I kind of like guns, like it's like a sport for me now. Of course, I don't own any of it, though Dave had offered to buy me one. But I said no.
But buy me one.
but it's fascinating. So today we kind of want to dabble into the gun culture a little bit in the U.S., in America, and also share perspectives about what we think. We all have different views about this. I think. Anyway, I'll let my friends to kind of talk about what they think. Do we start with Dave? Really, Dave? What's your take on the gun culture thing?
I love it. I mean, for me, I have several, and then of course my background in law enforcement, and then as a contractor overseas, it's just part of your daily life. You carry it everywhere. And I think one thing that I wanted to add to your dialogue was that we discussed and covered safety more than anything else in the very beginning.
Right.
I think that's what's lacking here in this country. We talk about it. This is first of all, you talked about you didn't understand how this 21-year-old needed a gun, and my response to you was, well, I've never read the Bill of Needs. It's the Bill of Rights. So
Right.
it's a right for us to carry this, that, and the other. But
Yeah.
I think it's crazy that here in the state of Virginia, we have an open carry law, so you don't have to have any training, any safety recognition for you to carry a gun if it's in plain view. But if you have a concealed weapons permit, you have to go through a gun safety class. So I'm kind of torn on that a little bit. I understand, but I think if you're gonna carry any type of weapon outside of your residence, you should be given at least a basic training and safety on that. But I will say it was pretty funny for you to walk in that day for the first time.
Yeah.
And for those of you that are just watching, so Vic's wife, when I offered to introduce him to weapons, she was actually saying that would be a great opportunity. And he's over there like, no, I'm not interested in this. So I think she kind of nudged you.
I think part of the reason also perhaps the dad was in the Army, I think, in the Navy as well.
Mm-hmm.
So she was kind of used to that to some degree. But for me, it was like the first time I've never held a gun in my hands. And the idea, maybe also it might have something to do with how we're being socialized to see guns as something bad, right? And just the idea of just having one is just terrifying, or and also how we associate that to death. It's maybe it might be the other thing. What about you? What's your position about the whole thing about guns?
Well, I think when you talk about guns and you talk about gun control, I like to shift the narrative to more of gun culture. I mean, I think in America, growing up here in this country, there's 400 million guns in this country. There's more guns than there are people.
That's right.
So, at some point, you're going to come in contact with guns, whether you see them laying around in somebody's house, whether you see them on police officers, where you see them in the criminal aspect. It's just a part of the American culture. Unfortunately, with that gun ownership, there's that illegal aspect of gun ownership that leads to, more violent crimes. And unfortunately, the results of that violence and death in this country it's astounding. It's unfortunate, but I don't think there's anything that we can do at this point to control that. Right. I know that's the conversation, that's the dream, but I hate to be cynical, but I don't know what legislation you could put in place that would control guns. I don't know what the statistic is on stolen guns in this country, but it's astounding. So I think from a legal standpoint and illegal ownership, they're probably pretty close neck and neck. I don't know if you know that statistic or not, but
no, I don't. But
I know it's fairly close. So to legislate people who lawfully own guns, what do you do about the folks that illegally own guns? Right. So what do you do with that? So I always question when you start talking about gun control and legislating new laws, like to do what?
Yeah, the laws are already on the books.
Yeah.
So just enforce it. But it's kind of like let's say you go to banning cars. We're banning cars. You can no longer drive cars. Well, let's say we had as many cars as we do guns. How do you get rid of 400? To your point, 400 million guns? Like, it's not going to happen. No. So, the only thing that's what they say, worse than a good guy with a gun's a bad guy with a gun. To your point, you go and legislate that all you want. It's only going to hurt the law-abiding citizens. They're called criminals for a reason because they don't follow the law. So that's where we stand on that. So I think that for somebody that was like Vic, who was hesitant about it, my goal is not to debate with him on that. It was to educate him. Right. And I will say he did a wonderful job by the end of that day. I think we spent 4 or 5 hours together.
Yeah, it was fun. I like it was the first time, man. But then after that experience, I kind of see why kind of people, kind of embrace the gun culture. But one of the things that kind of picked out from that experience is the fact that it seemed like more of a sport than anything for most people. Would you consider owning a gun as a sport?
Well, you mentioned that. You kind of related that to golf.
Yeah. It's like taking away people's golf club.
Yeah.
Like, most people wouldn't like that. So if someone is seeing a gun as some kind of sports that he or she engages in, and you take that away from them, I think not everyone would like that.
Yeah. So whether it's sport, home protection, home defense, whatever the case is, it's what you want to use it as. I remember walking into the gun store, which was like a small Walmart, and your eyes just lit up. Everybody had a gun on their side, and then there was every type of weapon in the wall.
I know. Like,
whoa, it was a major culture shock. But you going in there brand new, and we vocalized that with a couple of people. Yeah. How were you treated?
I think people were nice, but I think my problem had always been when you think about someone having a gun, it's like you always associate it with the person. What if the person uses that, right? That's a fear that comes with that. I don't know where the fear comes from, right? So do you think that when you use a gun from an early on stage, that kind of takes away the fear? Or would you always have that?
I just think it's part of your life. For me personally, if I'm carrying, and I carry a lot, but if I'm carrying and there's some type of confrontation that I'm dealing with, I am more likely to back down, to get out of that situation than I would if I wouldn't have.
Right.
In fact, I just feel like I'm more responsible when I'm carrying.
A situation that you observe or a situation that you're personally in?
Personally in. Okay. Like if I get into some type of dispute or altercation with somebody, I'm more likely to back down and just, separate myself, because now I know, I don't know if he or she has a gun, but I know I have one. So now I know there's one gun in that altercation. So I try to step away from it. Just get away from that. I'm more aware of it.
So then, what